This week, the economic forecast will be released, revealing the amount of tax collections the state has to spend in a budget. What do you think should be the legislature's response, whether collections are up or down?
Well, people have been very clear that they don't want new taxes. And quite frankly, I'm a little bit concerned about the title-only bills that are being passed by the Democrats, potentially passed by the Democrats in the House, leaving a wide open end for content there. When you have a scope and title that allows a large area of financial impact, fiscal impact, the potential for damage is pretty substantial. One more thing. I'm kind of concerned about Governor Inslee saying that ending tax incentives is not the same thing as a tax increase. Quite frankly, I'm really looking to find the governor that we elected that said no new taxes, rather than the governor that currently exists is talking about how much of a tax increase.
What's the latest on your statute of limitations bill?
Well, it passed the House unanimously here, and the Senate's going to hold a hearing on the 22nd of March. I'm really encouraged. There's two bills out there. We have a companion bill in the House that's moving towards the Senate, and an absolute copy, a mere copy of the bill in the Senate coming towards the House. We're not going to have to change either one of them. Whichever one actually hits the governor's desk first, I believe is going to be the one he'll sign. It doesn't matter whose bill the governor signs. The important part is that we actually get this bill in effect.
House Republicans have unveiled a budget that funds education first. What does that mean?
Article 9, Section 1 of the state constitution makes it very clear that funding K12 education is not a paramount duty of the state, it's the paramount duty of the state to do so here. And we had a three different priority of government set up for years. They had to do with education, had to do public safety, and the most vulnerable. With the McCleary decision, education is obviously taken a front seat. It is the primary responsibility of the state to adequately fund this. More so, it's a matter of getting politics out of education funding. What we should look towards is sustainable budgeting. Not sustainable revenue sources, sustainable budgeting, in that we set up those priorities of government first and fully fund those before we talk about funding the things that are nice to have, but that are not mandatory to have, so to speak here. We have the potential for education, public safety, and the most vulnerable to be adequately funded before we enter budget negotiations. Then we don't fist fight for the first nickel of budget money each coming election cycle, each coming biennium for a budgetary cycle.
Some worry that fund education first means simply spending more on the current education system. Is that right?
No, it's not right. The Washington Policy Center was very clear a ways back in addressing the existing revenues that are applied. Only about 59% of those total revenues actually make it to the classroom where they can have a direct impact on student outcomes and performance. Now, the additional dollars out of the $2 billion expected increase in revenues coming from the recovery of the business sector here in the 13 to 15 biennium, 1.5 billion of those are actually allocated for K12 education. Now, Fund Education First sets up a completely separate budget for education so that we're not actually having to go to a budgetary lottery system to where we have to worry about $1 each time out of the general fund that the education needs to be funded here. What we're going to do is we're actually looking towards funding for all-day kindergarten and reducing class size for kindergarten through third grade. We'll set students on the right path for success here, and is another one of those issues where having adequate dollars allocated correctly, not for student services, not for transportation issues, not for the other issues out there that people talk about that are funding requirements, but specifically to the classroom where they can have a direct impact on student outcomes.